There are three of them, inside one body. This is the fact you have to hold at the center of everything else. Not the bow, not the corruption, not the 1,000 years of imprisonment. 3. A Darkin who has been waiting in the dark since before recorded history. A hunter who carried a dying man into a cursed temple, because love would not let him leave him behind. The dying man himself, who is not dead, who is not yielded, who is still inside the thing that is using his body as a vessel and fighting every moment to keep the worst of it contained. Their names are Varus and Kai and Valmar. The thing that wears them calls itself Varus too. The original name is the only thing the darkness kept. His name is Varus. And the story of how a Darkin archer became one person and three, and the question of which one survives, is not a story about evil. It is a story about what love holds together when everything else is trying to tear it apart. New here? Subscribe. Every week, a League of Legends story told the way it deserves to be heard. The first Varus, the one who existed before the bow, before the corruption, before any of this, was a man of the Churi Empire, and by any accounting he was extraordinary. He was an archer, not simply skilled, the kind of archer that becomes a word for a standard that other archers are measured against. He had been stationed as a temple guardian in the eastern provinces, and the posting suited him. He was disciplined, devout, attentive to the specific responsibility of protecting something sacred. He understood his duty as his identity. The two were not separate things. When the invasion came and the other guardians left their posts to help defend distant villages, Varus stayed. He stayed because he had made a vow. He stayed because the temple was sacred and he had been trusted with it, and the trust mattered more than the impulse to go where the fighting was. He stayed while his family, somewhere out there, in the direction the smoke was coming from, faced whatever was coming, and he could not help them, and he stayed anyway because the vow was the vow. Every arrow he fired was accompanied by a sound he could not suppress. Anguish, not the battle cry of a warrior. The sound of a man who has chosen his duty over his family and is discovering, with each passing moment, exactly what that choice costs. The Ascended came to him after. They found him kneeling in the courtyard, the bodies of the Void servants scattered around him. He had defended the temple, the vow had been kept, the cost had been everything. They offered him what they offered their most worthy, Ascension. The chance to become something greater than mortal, to fight the void with the power of something that could not be killed in the ordinary way. He was past grief by then, he was past hope. What remained was the specific clarity of a person who has been reduced to a single remaining purpose: make them pay. Take from the void what the void had taken from him. He ascended. Here is what the records do not say directly. Ascension in the best circumstances is transformative. In the worst circumstances, when the mind that receives it is already fractured, already organized around something other than wholeness, it amplifies whatever is there. Varus carried his grief into the process. He carried his rage. He carried the specific hollowness of a man who has sacrificed everything and has nothing left to protect. What emerged from the ritual wore his face. Whether it remained him in any meaningful sense is the question that the centuries afterward would slowly and terribly answer. He fought. He fought for Shurima against the void in the campaigns that defined that era, and he was devastating. The crystal bow that came with his ascension was a weapon of extraordinary power, and his skill with it was the kind of skill that does not degrade with power but becomes more precise, more lethal, more refined. He targeted commanders. He targeted champions. He made it possible for the armies around him to advance, because the things standing in the way of that advance did not survive long enough to be the things standing in the way of that advance. The victory came. Shurima's forces eventually contained the void incursion, closed the rifts, secured the boundaries. It was not enough to bring him back from where he had gone. The other ascended, who survived the campaigns, who had seen what sustained proximity to the void did to the mind, who had watched the corruption work, called people like Varus by a new name, Darkin, the ones who had lost themselves, the ones whose grief or ambition or rage had filled the space that wholeness should have occupied, and then kept filling it, until what remained was something that functioned like a person but was organized around destruction rather than anything else. They moved against the Darkin. There were battles. The Targonians came and taught the surviving mortals a method, not to kill the Darkin, which proved impossible, but to trap them, to take the weapon that the Ascension had bound to them and seal the consciousness inside it, eternal imprisonment in the object that had been meant as a tool. The warrior queen came for Varus personally. She was magnificent, and she was suicidal in the specific way of someone who has decided that this is the thing worth dying for, knowing what the bow would do to whoever held it next, knowing that she would be the one holding it through the final confrontation, knowing that she was volunteering for a fate that would take her apart slowly. She won. She gave the final order with whatever will she had left. Take me somewhere it will not be found. Put me where the corruption cannot reach anything else. They took her to the first lands. Ionia did not forget. The ritual practitioners of the region, the people who understood that certain places carried certain things and that those things required maintenance and respect and the continuous attention of those who knew what they were guarding. They kept the knowledge. They kept the rites. They kept the specific disciplines that prevented what was buried from becoming something ambulatory again. For centuries this worked. Then Noxus arrived. The invasion of Ionia disrupted everything, not just the political order, not just the military balance, but the deeper structures of maintenance and continuity that made Ionia function as more than a collection of provinces. The temples that depended on specific practitioners who depended on specific conditions that depended on specific peace. The rites that could not be performed during an occupation. The knowledge that died when the people who carried it died, in fighting that was not supposed to reach them. In the chaos of the first Noxian wave, two hunters, Kai and Valmar, found themselves pushed into positions that combat rarely leaves time to think clearly in. They had been fighting well, they had pushed back the first assault, then Valmar took a wound that was going to kill him. Kai could not leave him. This is the simple fact at the center of everything that follows. Kai could not leave Valmar. They were partners in the specific way that certain people become partners when they have been through enough together that the distinction between their lives has become unclear. Kai looked at the dying man and looked at the temple and understood, in the limited way available to someone who was not a ritual practitioner and did not know exactly what the temple contained, that there might be something inside capable of helping. He carried Valmar in. What was inside was not capable of helping. What was inside had been waiting for exactly this, for the seal to be weakened, for the rites to have lapsed in the specific way that an occupation produces, for two living bodies with enough will and enough love between them to make a viable vessel for something that had been imprisoned in a bow for a very long time. The bow's power reached out. It drew them in. What assembled from the pieces of both of them was a body that Varus, the Darkin, the original archer, the thing that had been waiting, could occupy. Here is what the histories of Darkin possession do not adequately account for. What happens when the vessel fights back? Kai and Valmar did not disappear. They were inside, both of them, not as ghosts, not as suppressed memories, as presences. Active, aware, holding together by the same force that had sent Kai carrying a dying man into a cursed temple. The love between them, which sounds like a small thing and is not, was the specific thing that the Darkin had not calculated for. A Darkin waiting for centuries builds models of what a human vessel will be. Desperate, isolated, easy to overwhelm. Two people who cannot let go of each other are a different problem. Varus pushed. They pushed back. The body moved through the world in a state of constant, internal negotiation. Sometimes the Darkin's coldness dominant, sometimes the human warmth of the two hunters surfacing, sometimes the control flickering between all three in ways that observers could see if they knew what to look for. The Darkin wants what Darkin want, to find the others, to reconvene, to pursue the old purposes that predated the imprisonment, and that the imprisonment has refined into something more focused and more lethal. The destruction of the humanity that destroyed his kind. Kai wants to protect Valmar. Valmar wants to go home. Neither of them has given up. The Darkin has had centuries of practice at this. They have had each other. What determines the outcome in any given moment is which of these facts is more immediately present. The outcome has not been determined. It may never be. Or it may be decided in a single moment that neither the Darkin nor the hunters see coming. This is the nature of three things sharing one body. You never know which one will be present when the moment that matters arrives. If this story reached you, subscribe. Every week, the full lore of a League of Legends champion, told the way it deserves to be heard.